to listen to the Dr. Daliah Show. Sassy, stimulating medical talk radio. Any medical advice Dr. Daliah Wax gives on her show should not be substituted for an actual visit to your medical provider. And now, here's Dr. Daliah.
We are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-Dr. Daliah, 1-877-DOCDALI. So before President Biden was diagnosed with COVID, I think we were already seeing the signs that he might be preparing to withdraw from the campaign. It is not official. These are obviously rumors, but when he had an interview, I think it was with BET News, saying he would withdraw from the campaign if he was diagnosed with a medical condition, right away we knew this was going to be his out, and his ability to save face and leave without being pushed out. My prediction day one when he took office, and it's not something that we should celebrate at all. He has a very highly decorated, multiple decade, service, timeline, of the U.S. Senate, and being a public servant, I don't want anybody to have to leave office with people saying that he's a bedwetter or pooping in his pants. I think it's disrespectful. But I had thought from day one that he was not going to be able to very robustly perform his term, and that he would, prior to leaving, want to leave with a bang, rather than not get chosen at the Democratic convention, rather than being pushed out. He would say, look, I want to give you guys the first female president. So on my own, my decision is going to be, I'm going to step back so I could give you guys the first female president. And that is what's going to be the last paragraph of my Wikipedia page under the political career. That's how I'm going to make history. And so I always thought that Biden was going to not want to leave on a note where people said he was incompetent or cognitively flailing or sick. And so, he's in a tough position because he says, I'm still going to go. I'm still going to fight. I'm still going to do this. Yet it seems like multiple there's rumors and reports that Chuck Schumer, Nancy Pelosi, Adam Schiff, Hakeem Jeffries is asking him to move on. They don't have a lot of time between November 5th and now. They don't have a lot of time. And, seeing Biden, have issues, which we have seen for a long time, only now somebody has given the green light to be able to go ahead and talk about it. And that's why now we're starting to see it finally on the news outlets. I see the writing on the wall. I think we all have, but I had thought early on that he was going to leave, but try to leave on a high note, such that the history is changed a little bit and more in his favor, as he could say he elevated the first female president. Many people don't want Kamala Harris to be president, but at least he gets credit for that progressive move. This interview where he said that he would leave if the polls don't say he's going to win, or if there's a medical condition, we have to remember what's happening behind the curtain. Many people are kind of calling for a little bit more transparency from a medical standpoint. If any other doctor would have ordered an MRI on somebody with a history of cerebral aneurysms and atrial fibrillation and blood clots and certain cognitive changes, it's a slam dunk that somebody would be doing a mental status exam as well as doing imaging of the brain. And when Karine Jean-Pierre, the White House press secretary, said his doctors didn't think it was necessary, okay, well, now that puts the doctors in a spotlight, and people are concerned about their qualifications. And so, doctors don't want to lose their license. Biden will eventually leave office, but these doctors have to still practice medicine. And so how do you still save face in the medical community if you are not performing the proper medical evaluation and could be accused of negligence, if not malpractice? So I think the medical providers are like, look, we're going to have to when asked, assuming we're not violating HIPAA, if we have to show transparency of what needs to be done, our recommendations still hold firm. And if the White House is not conveying those recommendations, then it's on the White House. But if the physicians are like, look, we got to put him first, these are our recommendations, it's going to come out. And so Biden has a choice. Either let the doctor say he has cognitive deficit and he needs a workup, or B, bypass all of that and say, you know what? I have served over 4 decades. I want to be the most progressive president out there, and here you go. This is what I'm doing. And that's what I think he would still do. It wasn't a good image, seeing him very vulnerably go up the stairs, which I have said time and time again, after we saw, with Hillary Clinton and, Gerald Ford falling. I wonder if we really need to stop having the cameras on the airplane. It's not a good look for a lot of these presidents. And mind you, I'm not old yet. I'm getting there, but I don't have good balance. I would have Gerald Forded or Biden those stairs. And if I'm wearing a skirt, I don't really think I want the cameras all up in there, but the cameras are always on the plane because in Las Vegas Airport, in Harry Reid Airport, where Air Force One lands, is a very open area, so you really don't have a lot of cover. So yes, people will be able to see him gingerly go up the stairs, but it doesn't look like he's going to make it. Not another 4 years, another 4 months. And it looks like they're already starting to set up the path where he has an out. And again, he's not going to want his out to be, I'm flailing in the polls. And the polls are showing, Donald Trump is a shoo-in. He's not going to do that. And he's not going to say, oh, my doctors think that I have a medical issue. He's not going to. So I think it would be something where he would resign on his own. It's not a happy day. This has been a very, very rough week. And I know there's people out there that hate Trump and hate Biden, and the hate is still being spewed. And you see people just still want to, kind of fight and argue and all that. But, we're talking about the health of 2 individuals, one who almost died, which I don't know why Joy Reid is equating COVID to an assassination attempt. But, either way, it's a sad day. And I hope Biden gets the help he needs. 1-877-DOC-DALIAH, don't go away.
Let's see, if something costs less, but people are happier with it, that sounds like something to look into, and that's MediShare. Maybe you've heard switching to MediShare to pay for healthcare can save the typical family $500 a month, and that's huge, but it's also true that people are way more satisfied after making the switch, too. The customer satisfaction rate for MediShare is double that of the typical health insurance plan. Double. MediShare works. It's been around for more than a quarter century, and members have shared more than $3 billion of each other's bills. People love having telehealth and a huge nationwide PPO network. So yeah, you can save a ton and like it better. Imagine being happy with how you're taking care of your health care. So if you're self-employed or part of the gig economy, or you just want a plan you're happy with, you can call right now and get a price within 2 minutes. A very, very smart use of 2 minutes. Here's the number you need. 855-SHARE-40. That's 855-SHARE-40. 855-SHARE-40.
Hey guys, it's Dr. Daliah. Fantasy football season is coming, but sadly, too many of you are taking the bench while the country takes part in one of the most exciting and lucrative industries out there. Don't know how to play? Well, huddle up and listen. Paul Kalikas and I have written a fantasy football pocket guide for beginners. This book walks you through the basics and shows you how simple and lucrative joining or creating a fantasy football team can be. Read our Fantasy Football Pocket Guide for Beginners found on Amazon, or follow the links on X and Facebook. That's Fantasy Football Pocket Guides for Beginners. Don't be left out.
In a study, it was found that 33% of 44 herbal supplements had no trace of the advertised herb. Don't let that happen to you. Hi, this is Dr. Mitch. If you want to ensure quality, please go to TotalWellness.com. Supplements made for physicians, only now available to you too. TotalWellness.com, helping you to look good, feel good, and enjoy total wellness.
All right. We are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877-Dr. 1-877-DOCDALI. Big thanks to Talk Media Network for making the show happen. And big thanks to Daniel, our producer. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter at Dr. Daliah, Facebook, The Dr. Daliah Show. And when you are on YouTube, please click like and subscribe. So we have a new medical diagnosis. It's called floxing. No, not that's a flossing. That's dental floss. No. It's called floxing with an X. And it is related to the fluoroquinolone antibiotic class. The fluoroquinolones, like your ciprofloxacin, Levaquin, levofloxacin, these fluoroquinolone antibiotics have been a very powerful class of antibiotics, and we have used it for we've used them for UTIs. We have used them for skin infections. We've used them for sinus infections. We've used them for hospital infections. I remember when in training, which is a long time ago, when Levaquin was started to be used more ubiquitously, and it had followed Cipro. Cipro had already been out for a while, and how powerful it was because it was a once a day medication. But I was very timid and apprehensive about some of the 750 milligram doses and some of the higher dosings, because I had learned early on that you had to be very careful with that class of medication with diabetics. Apparently, it could interact with some of the diabetic medications. It could promote hypoglycemia. And so I knew we had to try and avoid that class in those with diabetes, which was kind of difficult because when you had a diabetic foot ulcer or you had somebody who was getting frequent UTIs or frequent sinus infections and they had diabetes, you wanted to go to that. But I ever since I practiced, always was hesitant because, I listen when my teachers teach me something or my attendings. And then I had one patient who said that they can't take the medication. Well, when people say, I have an allergy, you always ask, so what's your allergy? What does it do? Does it cause you to not breathe? And they said, no, I rupture my tendon. It causes me it weakens the tendon such that when she was doing activity, it had ruptured. And a couple other patients had told me that happens. So I was very gingerly using that medication, and unless everything else people were allergic to, unless I had to. It still is a very powerful class. Well, apparently there's been so many side effects with it that now there's a medical diagnosis. They say the CDC said that there's going to be ICD-10 codes created for physicians to report patients with fluoroquinolone poisoning or issues with fluoroquinolones. They say the ICD-10 is a medical coding system that, it used to be ICD-9, then we had to change it to ICD-10. And that's when, remember, people were like, why do we have a jet engine injury and then a recurrent jet engine injury? Who survives a jet engine injury enough to then go and have a second one? But apparently there's a code for, I think there was at the time. And so it catalogs the health conditions. In order for a doctor to get paid or a medical system to get paid, they have to do the code, which I think, by the way, is a crappy system. I think the medical provider should be paid up front and then all the backside of reimbursement and all that, but it doesn't work that way right now. Which is why, unfortunately, many medical offices have closed because, when they don't get paid, you can only do so much. But these codes are used to process health insurance claims, disability coverage, etc. And so floxing is a term used, according to Yahoo News, for people who get adverse events from fluoroquinolones. I don't want to use the term poisoning because people equate that to overdose or inappropriate use. Many of these people are taking it appropriately. But one patient said she got ciprofloxacin for a routine urinary tract infection. Now she's confined to a wheelchair and experiences constant pain. So the FDA has a nice list of, fluoroquinolone side effects. They include tendinitis, tendon rupture, like I said, numbness or tingling or prickling sensation like pins and needles in the arms and legs, muscle weakness, muscle pain, joint swelling. You could have central nervous system issues, mental health issues, anxiety, depression. There's been reports of hallucinations. There's been reports of suicidal thoughts, confusion. And then if somebody has myasthenia gravis, they could also have worsening symptoms, according to the FDA, with the fluoroquinolone class, skin rashes, sunburn. I told you guys about sun sensitivity reactions, where when you take a medication and then you're out in the sun, you can react and get a burn. And so fluoroquinolones will make you sometimes more sun sensitive. It could affect your heartbeat and give you a more rapid heartbeat, which is also concerning. What can it do to the heart? And then some people could get severe diarrhea. And so what this, to me, the story is, because some of you will say, okay, I'm not going to flox anytime soon, so most likely I will never be floxing. I'm good. Let's move on. That's not the moral of this segment. The moral of this story right now is that we really put a lot of trust in these pills, to the point that patients don't even want the doctor around. They want to go and get their medicine, and that's it. They don't want our opinion. They don't want us to look for drug interactions. They call up and they say, they'll call telemedicine company and they go, I want my Cipro, or I want my Z-Pak, or I want my whatever. And when you try to explain, they don't want to hear it, and they're demanding. Not everybody, but we have some people like that. And when a medical provider is like, I'd like to think of a different class, no, this is what I need. This is the only thing that works. Understand that sometimes there can be side effects. And the side effect doesn't always have to happen every time you take it. Now, I always get this from people, but I never had a problem before. I never had a problem with Bactrim. I was completely fine with the Bactrim antibiotic until one day I started to pee black. And I'm like, what the hell is going on here? And I started to get little petechiae, little blood splinter hemorrhages in my legs. And that was from taking the antibiotic Bactrim. I never had a problem before, but all of a sudden now I developed an intolerance. Is it glucose 6P deficiency or PD deficiency? Is it an allergy? But I was very humbled by how a medication could take you down and mess with your system. And so we're very antibiotic dependent, almost like a drug. You know, people have COVID and they say, I need an antibiotic. And I get it. I get that antibiotics make you feel better. They do for me. And I'll argue with doctors saying, look, I know it's viral, but when I take the Z-Pak, I feel better. I get that because I'm one of those people too, where somehow some of these antibiotics just make me feel better. For those of you with UTIs, or you think you have UTIs, you pop a Cipro and you feel better in 2 hours. It's not logical antimicrobial activity, but maybe there's some sort of anti-inflammatory effect that you're getting that's making you feel better, or placebo. So I get the draw, because you want to feel better. You need to function. You need to go to work. You got to deal with the kids. You want an antibiotic that you can use. Also, once a day. Cipro's a twice a day, but Levaquin a once a day, kind of nice, kind of convenient. But these medicines do come with side effects, and we don't know about it until somebody talks about it, and it becomes a headline. This will be a headline because now the CDC is involved and they're calling it a medical diagnosis. These drugs will not be taken off the market because they still have a lot of value in terms of drug-resistant infections, and in terms of you have a lot of people who have penicillin allergies, which is a whole nother issue we need to talk about. Many of you really aren't allergic to penicillin. Some are, but many of you had a virus as a kid. You ended up developing a rash, but your doctor had given you antibiotics because they wanted to make sure you weren't having scarlet fever or whatever. And then you end up getting a rash, and you thought it was the rash from the antibiotic. For some of you, it might have been a rash from an antibiotic. For others, it was a viral rash. So we have a lot of people who might have been misconstrued as an allergy, but because we have plenty of other antibiotics, no one's going to tempt fate. No one's going to challenge your immune system. Just, you know what? We don't need the penicillin class for now. You don't have to. We got other medicines. So we can't necessarily lose another antibiotic class when we have so many people who can't take sulfa, can't take penicillins, can't take erythromycin or zithromycin. And so we start to narrow down the classes of antibiotics that people can get for, or use for simple infections or severe hospital infections. So understand that medical providers are now being very versed on use caution. Don't be giving antibiotics like it's napkins at a fast food restaurant, which, by the way, they're slowing down on that too because the cost, right, and inflation. Understand that there could be side effects and talk to your medical provider. 1-877 Dr. Daliah, don't go away.
Dr. Daliah here. Are you tired, burned out, gaining weight, succumbing to the daily pressures of life? Well, how's your dopamine doing? How you feel right now, how you'll feel an hour from now, and how you'll feel next week is completely reliant on your dopamine. Our daily motivation and willingness to push through challenges depends on the intricate chemical process dopamine provides. Christian Kalikas and I created Deploying Dopamine, a book that tells you what dopamine is, when it dysfunctions, and how to successfully deploy it when needed. Find Deploying Dopamine on Amazon today. Check it out.
At Hotshot Secret, we share the science behind common diesel problems. For example,
diesel fuel cetane levels.
the cetane rating in diesel fuel is 42 to 45. Most diesel engines operate more efficiently with a cetane rating of 48 to 50. One treatment of Hotshot Secret Diesel Extreme will raise your cetane 7 points, increase fuel economy, and improve cold starts.
Hot Shot Secret Diesel Extreme is available nationwide at truck stops, fine farm and auto stores, and online at hotshotsecret.com. Hot Shot Secret, powered by science.
All right. We are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877 Doc Dali, 1-877 DOCDALI. So we learned that an F-35 jet had to be dispatched to intercept an aircraft that violated the restricted zone near the GOP convention in Milwaukee. Now, the former president is going to be taking the stage tonight after Hulk Hogan and UFC's Dana White is, I've known Dana White. Our kids went to school together. He's a great guy. He's going to be taking the stage. And, obviously we're all pretty on edge because of the assassination attempt that happened on Saturday. And when you hear more and more, of the, blunders that happened with the Secret Service, mind you, I am not critical of those people who threw their bodies as a shield to Trump and were there putting their lives at risk for the former president. God bless, God bless anybody who serves in the Secret Service. Not to mention the local law enforcement, any of our public servants, especially first responders. God bless you all. But there was a planning issue. And so when you hear something like this, where there was a possible aircraft that violated the restricted zone, we're not getting a lot of details as to what this was. Was it a mishap? Was it a friendly, aerial issue? Was it a news outlet drone? At least we have, the military watching. At least somebody is now paying attention from an aerial standpoint. Fascinating that Hulk Hogan is going to speak at the Republican National Convention. I know that he and Trump have known each other. I remember the pictures after Rocky III, of he and Trump, and so it's definitely going to be an interesting night. But we're still kind of reeling in shock that what happened Saturday could even happen. And in terms of the director of the Secret Service, I told you anger will set in and people are going to call for people's heads. But if it really was on her, And if Secret Service Director Kimberly Cheadle did not have an appropriate plan in place or did not follow proper protocol, then she needs to step down. Now, somebody asked me, they had worked for the government. I've worked for the government. And I know where the question was going to be going with this. What if you are working for an agency or an entity? I think many of us have been in this position where you are given a job to do with not enough resources. And I've been in positions where you just know that there's something negative will happen. I've never worked for the Secret Service, obviously. And they are going to blame you, where you are going to be the, what's that word? I don't want to use, they always use the fall guy. Now, and you're going to, and so every time I had seen that, I'm very vocal because I put the customer first. I put the patient first. I put the student first. You have to put, rally attendees and the president or former president, you need to obviously have your priorities. And my rule of thumb is always make sure your priorities are correct. If somebody is going to be hurt, you speak up. You know what? When I interviewed medical students, I would give them, you always have to pose an ethical question. And my ethical question is, what if one of your colleagues, best friends in class, you catch cheating or you catch stealing something from a patient? Now, obviously the answer is, that person needs some help. So acknowledge it, get that person some help, and do what you can to protect the patient. Even if it means narking or telling your senior officer or your senior resident. And I know we grow up going, you got to be loyal to friends, you got to be loyal to your friends. We have to have our priorities, especially when there's safety involved. And so when somebody says, but what if Secret Service Director Kimberly Cheadle, working in the Biden administration, was not given the resources? And so, I mean, if it was me, I'd be like, here's my email asking for more resources. Here's my email. You always want a paper trail. Say, look, I don't think this is going to be enough. So then everybody knows it's not you. The problem is that's kind of what doesn't happen. When you're the fall guy in an administration, you go. And so I would say if she didn't speak out, she's still at fault. Because then who's protecting the president? Who's protecting, the future president? Who's protecting the vice president? Who's protecting the families that need Secret Service protection? And mind you, it's probably not an easy job. Secret Service isn't just about a president. It's about the president. It's about this family. I think Hunter Biden and his cocaine has Secret Service protection. All right, sorry about that. And so when you are the director of one of the worst agency failures since President Ronald Reagan's assassination attempt in 1981, people are going to be calling for someone to resign. Now, she had told ABC News on Monday, I do plan to stay on. And I'm going to tell you something. I don't mind she still being on to answer questions. You fire her and then she doesn't show up because we need to learn from what happened. And so I keep her job long enough so that she shows up to the hearings, because we need to know what the hell is going on. We need to know what happened so it doesn't happen again. We have a current president that requires Secret Service protection. We have a current GOP convention. We're going to have a Democratic convention. And there's a lot of family members that are with the that need the protection too, not to mention vice president and other. And so it's a scary time because there's crazy people out there. This Thomas Matthew Crooks, I don't know what the hell he was thinking, but this guy wanted to. I think one of his last messages on one of the video, I don't know if it was Stream or Steam. I'm not sure Steam. I think he had said, I'll find you that quote, where he basically was bragging that his coming out or he's going to be well known in the coming days. It's chilling to see something like that. And we still don't know what his motive is. Having been a registered Republican, but donated money to a liberal charity. And obviously his motive was to kill. And that's all we need to know. He wanted to murder, and he did. He murdered a father, fire chief. He critically injured others, and he almost murdered the former President Donald Trump. So this was a massive failure. And whenever you have a breakdown in the system, and I understand firing, I know that's more of like a retaliation, but to me, if you're not qualified for one of the most vulnerable jobs and life, I mean, we're talking life or death jobs. If you're not qualified, you're not qualified. I don't know what she did at PepsiCo. I haven't really been following her career. Maybe she's a phenomenal security head, for a soft drink company, but. For this, there were multiple failures, especially when children and people outside or in the back of the venue were able to see the shooter and had to call it to the attention of law enforcement. 1-877 Doc Daliah, don't go away.
Considered by most, optimized curcumin is one of the few bioavailable and highly absorbable curcumin products on the market. Hi, I'm Dr. Mitch. Since most chronic diseases have inflammation, our optimized curcumin seems to be a perfect addition to any nutritional program. It makes sense to me that preventing or reducing inflammation is a key component to our overall health. The Mayo Clinic found that curcumin can decrease swelling and inflammation, has antioxidant properties, and research suggests that curcumin can prevent cancer, or at least slow the spread of cancer, and in many instances make chemotherapy more effective. It protects our healthy cells even from radiation. TotalWellness.com, where we help you to look good, feel good, and enjoy total wellness.
Self-reliance. It's not a phrase we hear much in our culture these days. It might conjure up images of pioneers, the West, rifles, strapping men, and strong women. But what does it mean for us in today's world? The New American Magazine has just released its latest collector's edition, Self-Reliance, Foundation of Freedom. In it, the New American authors outline the necessity of self-reliance for a free people, tips for self-reliant living, and the importance of not giving up hope. This unique edition includes articles on the self-sufficiency of the founders, preparing for a worst-case scenario, firearms, financial self-reliance, the importance of community, and many other topics by expert writers. Now, for a limited time, the New American is offering a bundle of 3 collector's editions, Self-Reliance, The Great Reset, and Trump World, for just $19.95. Available at shopjbs.org. Visit shopjbs.org today.
All right, we are back on the Dr. Daliah Show. Thank you all for tuning in. 1-877 Doc Daliah, 1-877 DOCDALI. So, I have adult children now, and it's very different from having children where basically you could tell them what to do, because your adult children now have options. They could either take your advice and listen to you, or not. Now, when they're little, they don't have that option. You listen to your mama, or there's hell to pay. But now I'm in a position where I have adult children, and I'm noticing they're like, I will take that under advisement. I'm like, excuse me, say what? I'll give you something to take under advisement. I'm your mama. Okay, what your mama say, go. What mama says goes. You listen to your mama. Duly noted. Thank you. I'll now talk to dad. Like, oh, hell no. And so it's definitely a reality check when you, I mean, I've experienced I got a lot of miles on me. I'm not talking about dating miles. Well, that too. All right, Nets. Yeah, if I had a daughter, whew, oh boy, should have encyclopedias of historical reference that she would be able to access for questions on dating. But I love my sons, and I want them to have autonomy. But it's very interesting when there's a strategy you need to have when it comes to your adult kids. Okay, you want to guide them. You want to use your experience and your experiences. You want to use your failures to prevent them from making their own. On the flip side, you also know that your failures, if you didn't do those failures, you would have never had successes. Right? I.e. Dirk. Right? Dating Dirk was a mistake. I learned from it. Thanks to Dirk, I now have Corey. So, so as a parent, I want my kids on one end to go through what I went through so that they would learn what I learned so I don't have to tell them. But then on the flip side, I don't want them to go through what they went through. I couldn't find a place to live. I had to live in someone's backyard, trying to live on $6 a week for food. And I don't want them to go through all that. They don't I want you to be able to start life with a little easier platform than I did. And so, what do you do when you start to notice your kids aren't listening to you? And a lot of kids will do this, like, oh gosh, I know what mom's going to say, or I know what dad's going to say. So I've had a little bit of a different approach where I've been honest. I mean, they know that on one end, I'm like, look, if you robbed a bank, I'd blame the bank. Okay. Yeah. I am, Team Stoney and Team Brocky. You guys are my little fishy tushies. I love you guys so much. I could just eat. You're my little babies. I love you. You could do no wrong, whatever. Okay. Well, then they know they're not going to get objectivity. And yeah, sometimes I do talk to them like that. I still call them my little cupcake tushies and all that. I'm like, I'm a little cupcake tushy. You're so cute. Okay. But they're big boys now. So it's kind of hard to call them cupcake tushies. I still do though, because I'm their mommy. On the other end, though, my husband has been kind of shocked at how I tell them straight. Like one of my sons had done something and my husband's like, oh, that's good. I go, no, that's not. Looks like a crap job to me. Get it right. And he's like, well, I want to be a little bit more supportive, and they need to know they did a crap job. That's not going to fly in the real world. And so you kind of need the balance between the two. But the reason why I started to be a little bit more honest is because I want them to know that if I'm going to say something, there's no secondary gain. There's no ulterior motives. A lot of us have family members where their advice isn't for you, but it's for them. So let's say you love your daughter, and she has the opportunity to go to college across the country or go to college close by. And even though it's a better choice to go, you come up with reasonings to suggest, we need to stay. Well, is that for you, Dad, or is that for your daughter? And so you need to, make sure that you need to have that wiggle room, because there will be a time when your child may make a bad decision. And you need to be able to say something. So if you're critical of every single thing they do, they're going to be like, of course, there's no objectivity. You're always critical. If you're always overly supportive, and then you're like, oh, okay, well, yeah, that's good too. Then they're like, okay, well, you support me on everything. So you need to kind of have that balance. And so one of the reasons why I'm like, you could do no wrong, whatever, is because when they are doing wrong, I'm like, really? Come on, man. You screwed up, dude. And so I know it's hard because you don't want your child to make a mistake, but you also have to be very, very careful who your child is. If you have a child that will blame you, well, dad said to do this, mom, they weren't supportive. They said it was a bad idea. You can't do that. Cannot do that. And I am so grateful that my kids are making good decisions. If you raise them right, they make good decisions. My son is dating the most awesome woman. He perfect. I mean, he couldn't have picked a better soulmate. They're soulmates, I think. And so I don't need to step in. I don't need to give advice. He's got that. And so sometimes you do need to take a step back, but you also have to understand that you are, and maybe the other parent may be the only people on the planet that really have that child's best interest at stake. Now, maybe their future husband or their future wife or their future, but if you really, really care about them, my approach is show both sides. Let them, my job as a parent and as a teacher, when I teach students, I don't give the students the answer. It's, all right, this is how you derive the answer. Here are your options. Here's your pro list, and here's your con list. Here's your good and your bad. These are the things. And if you see them misinterpreting something due to immaturity and lack of experience, you could say, look at the other experiences of others. It doesn't mean you're going to have that same experience. But like, for example, there was a one of the kids of one of my friends was thinking about buying a franchise, small, inexpensive franchise, hiring. I'm going to hire staff and I'm going to do that. And I'm like, okay, I think that's great. You are going to school full time, working full time. How are you going to manage staff? I mean, I didn't say this, but, I'll just get a good manager. What if that manager doesn't show up to work? What if you own a restaurant, if you own a business, you need to make sure you're still there. And so how do you bring that up so they don't make the mistake and say, look, you want to support them, you want to show you're on their side, but you also want to go, now I just want to also make you aware, these are some things you're going to need to think about. And hopefully that sort of advice gets, at least taken in and appreciated. Not, Mom, thank you. I'm going to go talk to Dad now. 1-877 Doc Dali.
Did you know that healthy arteries make a gas? Yes, actually 3 known gases. Hi, I'm Dr. Mitch, and nitric oxide is a gas that's readily made all day long to keep our arteries open by relaxing the blood vessel walls. By doing this, our circulation is increased, bringing blood, oxygen, and nutrients to every part of your body. Both age and poor diet can lead to a loss of this precious gas, and in turn, blood pressure can go up, energy can go down, and you can get tingling in your hands and feet. Well, our product, Ultimate Nitric Oxide, can easily help fix this lack of nitric oxide. Go to TotalWellness.com. That's TotalWellness.com, where we are helping you to look good, feel good, and enjoy total wellness.